Hi there, this is Marty from owingsart.com, and thank you for stopping by today as we take a look at some different types of watercolor paper. And by different types, I mean papers that are made in different places in the world, different weights, different manufacturing processes, but actually some of the best watercolor papers in the market or in the world today really are made by some of these companies. So we'll start off with arches, and we'll make our way through 5 different types of watercolor papers, including a couple of French papers, an Italian paper, a handmade paper, and an American company that makes paper. This is the Fluid Company. This is a cold press, 300 pound, 100% cotton watercolor paper made right here in America. It's got a really nice texture to it, and it's got a heavy weight, so you don't have to be afraid of soaking this paper with water. Global Art Company distributes these, and they're manufactured, like I said, right here in the United States. They're excellent paper. And here's Canson. This is a little bit unique in that it's a watercolor art board and not strictly a paper. So we'll take a look at this art board, which is very heavy. You can see right there, that's a good roughly eighth inch thick, or at least a couple of 30 seconds. But it's a really heavy art board with a very smooth texture on it. And then and we'll put that to the test as well. We're also going to check out a different brand of Canson paper along the way. Not Canson, I'm sorry, Italian paper. That's the Artistical watercolor paper by Fabriano. Which is suitable for all different types of applications like watercolor, drawing, ink, charcoal, gouache, but it too is a 300 pound paper. So, and it's got a really nice texture to it, and each one of the papers is sort of, Fabriano says that, it goes through a rigorous quality standard and check. And finally, we'll take a look at some handmade papers. Now, this paper is made by a company in France in a little building. That's the actual building, this woodcut block of this building, and it is called the Moulin de la Roque factory, made in France, or workshop, I should say, because it's really not a factory since they don't mass produce papers there. They simply hand make some of the best watercolor paper in the world, in my opinion, at least as far as my experience goes. Now, I haven't tried every single watercolor paper there is to be had in the world, but I've tried quite a number of them, and this watercolor paper really stacks up, and it's got, like I said, a very fine textured finish. So we're going to try this out, and if you stick around for the end of the video, which I hope you do, I want to take a look, give you some bonus coverage of a very special kit that's produced in this little factory. It's sort of a travel kit right here. You can see it. And it comes with the paint and brush already in the little kit. And I'll show you all that at the end of the video. So stick around for that. Should be fun to take a look at. So I think the very first thing we need to do is we need to take each one of these papers and put them to the water test. So I'll take this big brush I have here, and I'll soak each one of these papers really with a lot of water. And what I'm going to look for there is any warpage or waviness or bending in the paper. Now, mind you that most of this paper is really heavyweight. It's, the French papers are Canson and arches are going to be 300 pound, and the other French paper, the handmade paper, is 200 pound. That's the lightest paper I have here today. And then the Canson watercolor art board, it's heavy. They don't give it a weight, but it's got the art board underneath it, so it's very, very heavy. And then the American paper, the fluid paper. So we'll soak each one of them, and I'm going to try to be consistent in terms of how I soak this paper so that I'm treating each one of these papers the same, so we can make a fair judgment about their performance here with respect to soaking them in water. So you really want to soak the paper a lot with the water if you want to put it to a good test. And so I'm using quite a bit of water here as I apply it to these papers. Now you can see here there's a few of these papers are going to have some warpage initially as you start out. I'm really not so concerned with the curvature here as much as if there were waves. So that's something that'll really irritate a watercolorist if the paper sort of collapses under the weight of itself. And then here I'm just going to apply some paper, some paint to the paper because I like to see the texture. Sorry, the texture. And so I'm, a blue, a green, a yellow, and then some mixture. And then I'll see how the paper I'll apply even more water and see how the colors run together, and just to see that effect in the paper. And so that was the Canson, the board, the watercolor board. And this is the Fabriano Artistical paper. I really like the texture of this paper. It's really fantastic and takes the paint well. So here I'm going to soak it, and you can see the colors just run. It's pretty brilliant. And then the Arches watercolor paper, which is a very popular watercolor paper. Now this comes in blocks, which can intimidate people. Well, why do they glue all the sides together? But don't let it intimidate you. It's really easy to separate the blocks and the paper and the block, and just with an X-Acto knife or a straight razor, just cut it away, and it's really not as hard as people make it out to be. This Moulin de la Roque paper from France is really nice. Now I experienced almost no warpage or rippling or anything like that from this paper, even after I repeatedly applied water to it. I really like the texture on it. It worked fantastic. So I apply a few extra colors here just because I wanted to see them on the paper. So what I'm going to do next here is I'll sort of compare the papers side by side so you can get a sense of how well the color looks on them and the texture and things like that. So here I've given the papers a little bit of time to dry. Now they're not completely dry, but I just wanted to see how they'd hold up. Now the Fabriano has some slight warping on the paper where I added that extra layer of water to see how the colors would run. The Arches, really not so much. It's pretty smooth. There's a little of the initial rounding of the paper or crowning from the water, but I really like how the colors blend here, and the texture is just about perfect, I think, for my liking. Now this is the Canson watercolor block, the art board, and you can see the difference here in the way the paper behaves in terms of the different textures, because that Canson is really a smooth surface, almost like a Bristol. I don't think it really does as much with the colors I like. Now the fluid paper, the American company, it held up well, although I had a little, you can see a little bubbling here where I added the additional color to get the colors to run and blend on the bottom, the blue and yellow. You can see that a little bit. There's a little bit of an indentation there as the paper crowned. But otherwise, I thought the texture was smooth on that as well. Now the Moulin de la Roque, this handmade paper, I actually thought this handmade paper made in this little workshop in France probably performed the best out of all the papers. Here's just a quick glance at these side by side and together, but I thought that one performed just about the best out of any of the papers. Now, here's that little kit I was talking about that you can go to the website, and I'll put a link here, but you can check out this paper, and I think it's probably going to be special order. You may find it in an American art supply store, but fortunately for me, I live in a town where there's a store called Wet Paint. So if you want to order this paper, Wet Paint has a limited amount of stock of these kits available, so I'm sure if you hurry up and email them or contact them, and I'll give you some information to get to their website, they'd be more than happy to take your order and mail you some of these so you wouldn't have to pay the freight from France. But first of all, you open it up, and you can see that there's sort of a wax or smooth paper on the inside of the front cover. And I'm actually It actually comes with a little brush. As you can see here, it's a two-piece brush, so you kind of pull it out and put it together. And there's not really a trick to it, it's just that I had the paper folded open and I should have just let it be about halfway up. But it comes with a nice little brush, and then underneath this wax paper you can see that there are five paint colors, 5 or 6 paint colors here, and we'll try them out. And then it comes with a pad of their handmade paper, and you can just separate the paper. It's perforated down on the bottom, so you can just rip the paper off when you're done. But I thought I'd try out some of these paints on this little pad. What a great little travel pad to take with you, you know, wherever you go, or just keep in your pocket. It's really lightweight. Like I said, it comes with a brush, and the paints are all included right here, which I thought was just really cool. I mean, it's just awesome, brilliant. Now, at first I was afraid to smear this paint around a little, so I didn't use a ton of water, but eventually got the hang of it. And I love the texture of this paper, and just the fact that this little kit is so compact and comes with such a wonderful variety of colors. I mean, basically everything you need, all the primary colors, so you can do whatever you want. I just loved it. And I don't know, let me see, I'm trying to remember exactly how many sheets come in this set, in this particular set, and I think it's like 10 different sheets. Yep, 10 sheets, 6 watercolors, 1 brush, and 1 tear-off palette. It's 100% natural, pH neutral, so acid-free. It's 100% cotton, and it's handmade in this little workshop in France. I just think it's brilliant. So don't forget to contact Wet Paint. You can call them up and just special order it. And there's a guy there named Darren there, and just ask for him and tell him I sent you, and he'll hook you up. I think these are very well priced at Wet Paint. I think they're 18 euros if you go and order them from France, which I think it's probably like 25 bucks. But if you order them from Wet Paint, I think they're like $14 or $15. So give them a call, and if you want to pick up this really neat and unique set, then you can you know, have a really fancy handmade paper kit for really what's a reasonable price. Well, thanks a lot for stopping by today and taking a look at these different watercolor papers, and I hope you get a chance to use some of them, because they're some of the best watercolor papers on the market and available in the world today. All right, this has been Marty for owingsart.com. Thanks for stopping by today. So long, everybody.